Today's Ringer NBA show Heat Check is brought to you by State Farm. A State Farm agent has the knowledge and experience to anticipate your needs. And with State Farm, you get more than just an agent, you get a teammate that gets what matters most to you. So go to statefarm.com to get an agent that gets you. And now, Heat Check.
He's got smoke coming off his fingertips. He's as hot as a blowtorch.
It's a Heat Check. You knew that was coming. It's Heat Check time.
Welcome to the Heat Check podcast. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, joined as I am every week by our excellent producer, Isaac Lee. Happy Mother's Day, Isaac.
Happy Mother's Day to you.
I did the math on this. We all have mothers.
Yeah.
So happy Mother's Day to your mom, to my mom, to all the moms at The Ringer, to all of our listeners who are moms. We got a good show, fun show, basketball. Never stops, as we like to say here at the Heat Check podcast. Before we get into that, we've got all kinds of excellent NBA content on theringer.com. KOC has a piece on The Ringer right now following game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, which did not go well for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Really,
to say the least.
To say the least. So KOC broke that down. Ugly performance by the Cavs. Excellent performance by the Boston Celtics, who just cannot be stopped. So that's up on The Ringer. Also, we have Jonathan Tjarks on Andre Iguodala and how he fits in with the Golden State Warriors. That series is set to kick off on Monday as you listen to this. We've also got a fun video about LeBron James with a Han Solo sort of mashup called Bron Solo, a Cavaliers story. See what we did there? That's a fun staff video. And we're going to have a live NBA show off the lottery on Tuesday night. You're not going to want to miss that. And of course, we're going to have a ton of NBA Combine content. KOC is going to be in Chicago for the Combine. I just wrote about Mo Bamba. You can check that out on The Ringer. So we've got all that stuff for you. But first, tons and tons of NBA playoffs. We're going to dig into game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to preview the Western Conference Finals. And then we're going to do some exit interviews from the 4 teams that got bounced out of the semifinals. So lots of stuff to talk about. And this one's going to be fun because we've got an all-star cast. We're going to do something we haven't done here before. We're going to go 4 wide with 3 of our favorites. Let's hit it.
Boom shakalaka. He's heating up. He's on fire.
All right, I'm very excited about this. Joining me in studio, we haven't done this before. So a lot of times with the new Heat Check format, what we do is we like to shuttle people in and out. It's more of a hockey lineup change. For this one, I said just bring everybody in at the same time. So from my right to my left, we've got Kevin O'Connor here.
Hello.
We've got Jason Concepcion here. And fresh off the plane from Dallas, live and in person, Jonathan Tjarks is here.
What's up, guys?
We've got 4 wide plus Isaac plus Milton is also here. So we've also got our animal friends represented. It's very exciting to talk about basketball, unless you live in Cleveland. Less exciting.
Tough look for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Not a great start to that series.
Maybe Marcus Morris was onto something.
Game one for the Boston Celtics went well. If you are a Celtics fan, they put it on the Cleveland Cavaliers right from the beginning. I mean, it really wasn't a contest. Kevin and I were watching it at work together, and right away you said, hey, Cleveland should really go big, and they didn't really until it was much too late.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ty Lue had a choice. Do you continue playing with your 4 shooters surrounding LeBron James, which worked tremendously well against Toronto last series and as part of one of their high-powered offenses, or do you go big and do what worked very effectively in the past against Boston with Thompson really just beating up on Horford and force them to play the lineup that they don't want to play with Baines and Horford, and they ended up not doing it. And Boston came out and just blew them out in the first quarter, and that was pretty much it. And I do wonder if that's the adjustment moving forward in game 2.
It seems likely, game 2. I feel like we'll go back to 2015, like caveman ball with Mozgov and Thompson. Just slow the game down, throw it inside, win ugly. Because this team, not enough talent to play any other way, I don't think.
Winning ugly is pretty much how they've won this year. It's such a weird Cavs year.
It's a very, very strange Cavs year. It's hard to get a read on them because they coasted for the entire regular season. Were a horrific defensive team.
Yes.
How much of that was that they were pacing themselves? How much of that is structural? Was hard to say. Clearly, they struggled with the Pacers when the Pacers had some dynamic stuff from the perimeter going on. The Celtics just have a really deep roster, and they have a lot of flexibility in the way they can play, and they can throw a lot of different looks at LeBron James defensively, and they have a lot of guys that can create offense, and the Cavs don't.
The Celtics are such a weird team.
They're weird.
But you're right about the looks that they can throw at the Cavs. Defensively, they're amazing. And they're so switchable, and everybody that they like, with the exception, there were times, right, and they were willing to deal with this, but there were times when Terry Rozier would end up getting switched onto LeBron, and that's just kind of what happens, and you deal with it. But almost every other player that they're switching is long, gives everybody for the Cavs serious problems defensively. I mean, that defense doesn't get enough credit. I mean, like, we saw it against the Sixers, and now we're seeing it with LeBron too, where they're a problem. They're a massive problem.
It's kind of funny because yesterday the Celtics Twitter account tweeted out that article about how the Marcus Morris is the best non-Kawhi Leonard
LeBron
defender.
Stopper. Let's start it now. Yeah. Let's get that nickname out there.
And guess what? He did a really nice job today, as did Boston's entire defense as a whole. Both teams switched almost all on-ball screens and off-ball too, for that matter. But when a smaller guy like Terry Rozier got switched onto LeBron, what do? They doubled. What happened when later in the game, it was Rozier, they ended up, when it was on Kevin Love on a switch, they ended up switching while the entry pass was happening. They were doing little things that might appear to be a weakness for Boston, Rozier on LeBron or Rozier on Love. They ended up having a way to counter against that. Their game plan was really, really good. Not only that, but also just the fact, like you said, Gons, they have a lot of good defensive players. So everybody can defend on that team.
What were you saying, like, to me, it's as much on offense. Like, who is Kyle Korver guard ever on this lineup? Like, what's he going to do? Like, tackle dudes?
Korver's not god-awful on
he's going to guard Jaylen Brown, though. That's just not going to work.
It's a mismatch, but I don't think he's, like, bottom of the barrel on defense necessarily.
But at this level of the game, though, he's got to get out of there.
For sure.
It sucks. He's good, but it just is what it is.
That's like the other side of it, though. It's like everybody's saying, Horford's the only star in the Celtics, and that's true, right? He's the only proven star, but Tatum is performing like a star. Jaylen Brown is having star nights.
Yeah.
Like tonight, he was fantastic. So they're getting contributions from other guys that they need to make it so, like, Korver, it's going against a really, really good player.
Yeah, to me, it's like they get offense from every position.
At the same time, if the Cavs can at least be competent from deep, it makes it a little easier. 0 for 3 for J.R. Smith from 3, 0 for 5 for LeBron, Kevin Love 1 for 4, Kyle Korver 1 of 5, George Hill 1 of 2.
Yeah,
and
4 for 26.
So they went 4 for 26, but part of this is a chicken and egg scenario for me because on the one hand, you're looking at the Cavs shooters and going, they got to make their shots. However, Tjarks, as soon as you got off the plane, you were saying, like, what did some of their looks look like? Some of them were fine. A lot of them were contested. And again, we saw this against the Sixers.
I was going to say game 1 of the Sixers, right? They were like, I missed so many shots.
So the first series for the Sixers, they shot the lights out, right? Because the Heat were supposed to have a good defense and the Sixers had a lot of shooters and the shooters went out. That defense for Boston, especially on the perimeter, is absolutely killer. And Mark Jackson pointed this out. It was maybe the first good point that Mark Jackson has ever made in a game broadcast, but he was talking about their perimeter defense, and you see the results right here, 4 for 26 on the perimeter. And I think, the Cavs missed some shots, but a lot of it goes to credit their defense, right? Marcus Smart. Here's another thing that I wanted to bring this up to you.
Sure.
Did you hear Mark Jackson say, and I'll throw this up to the entire group. Mark Jackson said that Marcus Smart is the greatest perimeter defender in Celtics team history.
Celtics team history.
I like it. Mark Jackson going on a limb.
I mean, look, he is an amazing defender, but they're the Celtics. Is that possible?
Celtics super fan KOC. Let us know about this.
I just pulled up an article, like top Celtics defenders in history, and they have John Havlicek 1, Dennis Johnson 2, Tony Allen 3, Reggie Lewis 4, Rajon Rondo 5. Smart's better than Rondo, I think.
Smart's better than Rondo.
Yeah, I think
Rondo was fantastic.
Here's the thing. I mean, is he better than peak Tony Allen? I don't think so. But the thing is Marcus Smart has a really special ability that not many players do of defending bigger players. In the past, we've seen him against Paul Millsap, Kristaps Porzingis. He had the strip on LeBron James today. He is an unbelievable defensive player. There's no doubt about that. The rankings, top 5, I don't know, man. I mean, he hasn't played long enough.
Like John Havlicek. I don't think my dad was alive when Havlicek.
He did steal the ball that time.
I can't even tell you.
You can't. You can't like that.
That
one time he stole the ball, and we've heard about it for decades.
World War II.
I've long said that if Marcus Smart is ever like on a championship team, no matter what team it is, he's going to have a moment like that, because Marcus Smart does have the it factor about him, that if he's on a championship team, he will have a moment like that. Marcus Smart is having some moments.
South Oak Cliff, Dallas, represent.
Marcus Morris is having some moments. The Cavs are having a lot fewer moments. Did we get, because you had mentioned, like, it's been a super weird year for them.
Just very strange.
But so did we, like, because of what happened with the Raptors, did we just forget about everything that came before? Because they crushed the Raptors and we went, oh, right, it's playoff LeBron. He's just going to carry them. It's going to be fine.
I think to an extent, the recency bias is always going to be there, especially in the playoff time. LeBron took advantage of a team that wasn't willing to adjust to what he was doing and basically just fell back on the things that never worked in the past against him. And he carved them the fuck up.
Yeah.
The Celtics, they can make so many adjustments. It's just a totally different series. And if you look down the roster, like who has an edge? LeBron has an edge every time he's on the floor. The rest of those matchups, who really has an edge? It's tough to say. Outside of LeBron, I don't really see anything.
And that's the thing, really, is so for like Toronto, I mean, it was a tough matchup problem that series for them because Jonas Valanciunas can't defend Kevin Love.
Yes.
And Boston has Al Horford, one of the best defensive players in basketball. So Boston has an ability to match up better with Cleveland in a way that Toronto didn't.
That's why you got to go to caveman ball. You got to make Baines get in there.
Yeah.
Maybe make Greg Monroe get in there. That might help you out a little bit. Get that matchup going.
Right, and just really try and drag the pace down into the mud.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think, like, I said that, like, I tweeted that this morning, and, you know, I kind of feel the same way. But on the other hand, like, just to play devil's advocate, maybe you are better off just playing with this 4-out offense because LeBron James, with all that space, is at his best. He's probably not going to be as bad as 5 for 16 again, 0 for 5 from 3. LeBron's probably not going to have a 7-turnover game again. They're probably not going to shoot as poorly as they did.
I wonder if LeBron was like, this isn't happening today. I'm shutting it down. Like, I have so much energy left in the series. I got to be very careful.
He pulled a Rodney Hood.
He did.
He decided he was like, I can't go back in the game. Put Jose Calderon in there.
Jose's ready. Jose's ready.
Can we talk about this for a second? So during the game broadcast, it was a fascinating exchange. They said that Rodney Hood denied that he didn't want to go back in the game. And as we just made fun of, said that what he actually said was that Jose Calderon was ready, so put Jose in. But as Jeff Van Gundy rightly pointed out, why the hell then did Rodney Hood apologize if he didn't refuse to go back in the game? Has anybody hurt himself more over the last year than Rodney Hood?
Rodney's got a bad attitude. And it has hurt him. There's got to be somebody that's hurt himself more because it's not like Rodney came in super, super touted, although his ability to shoot.
Nerlens
$70 million.
But he's cruising towards Nerlens territory with this.
Not guys get literally hurt as much as Rodney Hood does, though, either.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, that was good.
He's always hurt. It's true.
Maybe that's why he's so cantankerous all the time.
Well, he's got to watch himself, I guess. I might hurt my ankle out here this one.
But it's really bizarre because you look at this team and like, as Jason was saying, you look up and down the roster and you've got LeBron James and Kevin Love, and then you have a bunch of shoulder shrugs. Like, where are you getting offense from, right? Rodney Hood had an opportunity when he got to Cleveland to remake the narrative about Rodney Hood. I mean, this should be, in theory, a good spot for him. They need offense. He is theoretically a scorer. And instead he's like, meh, Jose, it's you, buddy. You go.
Well, I could see it the other way, too. Like, I remember when Crowder came to Utah, and they were like, how you doing in Utah? And he's like, wow, we have a system and there's structure. This is pretty cool. Like, it's hard. I think for some guys, it's hard to be in Cleveland and watch LeBron hold the ball for 45 minutes and never do anything. So it's definitely an adjustment for a younger player like Hood. He's had the ball his whole career.
And with Rodney Hood, he's the type of guy that, you know, he used to throw up before games, used to have nerve issues.
Yeah. So low mental toughness, what you're saying, Chaos?
Yeah, it's maybe. But I think maybe that's part of it where there's no greater pressure than playing alongside LeBron James, the greatest player of this generation.
You're in the NBA.
Maybe the greatest ever. Sure, you know, but we're talking about fit and every player's different.
All right.
I mean, maybe for Rodney Hood, he's better off playing in a low pressure environment than the greatest pressure.
Like, for example, Utah?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a small market, right? If it wasn't going to be low pressure
like
there.
Bad in Utah. He had some moments
He was okay.
Yeah. He's just always hurt.
Well, he got 18 minutes today, 11 points, 5 of 12 after refusing to go into the game, which kind of borderline shocking. But honestly,
I think that says it all right there. He played.
Yeah, I mean, he played.
Yeah.
What
he played.
It's not like they have options. Like, what are their options? Is play the guy who refused to go in the game.
Like, you literally have to get in there. Like, seriously, you have to go in.
We need you. We need somebody to go in there and eat minutes, please.
That's the thing. It's like, you know, it's always easy to blame these coaches. It's always easy to say Joe Prunty's playing Shabazz Muhammad. Yeah. It's always easy to say, you know, Ty Lue's playing Jordan Clarkson. But what options do these teams have sometimes? It's
we won't bring this back up, KOC. You know who they should have played in Milwaukee? Sterling Brown, but that's a whole different. That's a whole different story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after.
He's bringing He's bringing this one up. My guy Sterling Brown, but
I like Sterling a lot too. But I mean, they're like, for a coach, there must be a reason you're not playing Jetty Osman, right? There must be a reason that you have for not playing those guys.
What is it though? I can't figure it. I don't know what it is.
You did say. I thought you were like mostly joking when you said, "What does he have to do to get on the floor?"
Can we see? I mean, he's like, how bad could he be? He's looked okay throughout the season. He's had moments.
Yeah. Jetty plays really hard. He can space the floor.
I would like to see him out there, but I think like with Ty Lue, it's kind of a pick your poison thing with Boston's defense, right? Because if you're going to try to play fast and outscore the Celtics, that's one option. That means you're going to end up with Tristan Thompson on the bench a lot, or you could go the other way and try to play the bully ball thing.
If you get Tristan at 35 minutes, that eliminates a lot of Hood's minutes, Clarkson's, Green's. Like
you got to pick one.
The rotation kind of evens out more naturally that way.
These are not good options either way, though, is what I'm saying, because Boston's defense is a killer. Here's what I'm wondering, though. So let's just say that this first game is emblematic of potentially what the series could be.
I say always overreact to game one.
I love overreacting to game one.
There's good reason to sometimes. Dan Feldman tweeted out a stat today that the teams that won game one in best of 7 series have won the series 77% of the time. Teams that won game one, best of 7 by 25 plus have won the series 86% of the time.
Was it San Antonio, Houston last year? That was one where it went the other way.
Yeah, and then how many of those teams have LeBron James? Not many of them, but it's still interesting nonetheless.
I'm saying matchup-wise and then Boston's defense-wise, which again, all year long, they've just been so good. And yes, Brad Stevens is amazing and fine. But let's potentially, if this is the way the series goes and then Boston gets through, are we ready for a non-LeBron finals?
I'm ready for non-Cavs Warriors finals, any matchup at that.
But are you ready to watch the Boston Celtics with Al Horford as their primary guy and Jason Tatum as their 1A in the final? It's narrative. Yes. As narratives go and storylines go. I know you're ready. I'm talking to you about this.
It'd be a remarkable story for a team without two of their 3 best players and riding on a 20-year-old and a 21-year-old.
I mean, what were the odds after Hayward went down? 50-1 probably?
It'd be really a remarkable story, I think.
You want to see it?
I do want to see it. It's kind of like the Warriors versus the knockoff Warriors in a lot of ways, just in terms of the things they can do, the way they can switch on defense. The ways Proto Warriors. It's just a less high octane Warriors in terms of the way they approach the game and the way they use their players. I think it's really interesting. The games over the last 2 seasons between these two clubs have been really exciting during the regular season.
Celtics Warriors.
Yeah,
they've
that's true. Actually,
they've been really, really fun. And the Celtics give I'm not going to say that the Celtics are in any way a favorite, but they give the Warriors certain kinds of matchup problems. And a bit of their own medicine, so to speak. I think it'd be an interesting series.
I will say that it'll be fun to watch LeBron the rest of the series. That's before we get to that part. LeBron guns blazing will be good.
Well, see, that's why as I'm thinking forward, I don't know that I'm ready for less LeBron in my life, right? I want as much LeBron as I can possibly get. And also, and not for nothing, just as a Philadelphian, do we have to get into the budding Celtics dynasty already? It makes me want to self-harm right now.
It's we lost the conference champions.
No, it doesn't make me feel better. Here's because, again, as I look forward for not just the rest of this season, the rest of the playoffs, but for the next 5 seasons or 10 seasons, in theory, it should be Philadelphia and the Celtics jockeying, right? But the Celtics are about to add 2 amazing players for next year and beyond. And they're already in the conference finals and potentially going to the finals. Holy shit. No more Boston in my life. I thought with the Patriots that would be plenty, and the Eagles did a service for America by vanquishing the awful, terrible New England Patriots. And now what? The Celtics rise? Somebody help me here. This sounds awful. Not you. I said somebody.
The Celtics are far ahead.
They are.
Potentially 2 lottery picks next year's draft, too.
That's the thing.
That's the brutal.
It's brutal. I don't think they're laughing with me, gang. I think they're laughing at me.
You could be a Knicks fan or a Mavs fan. There are worse scenarios. I don't want to hear you crying. Why have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on my team? Oh, this is so terrible.
Wait, let me just ask one. Because I'm really fascinated by what the Sixers do. This is obviously off topic. What do they do about Fultz?
I think
they have to make it. My thing is they need to make a determination quickly whether what they think he's going to be for real. And then they need to make a decision about whether they cut bait or not. And I think they need to do it soon. Because their window is smaller than you think it is.
The funny thing is, he's exactly the guy they needed in the last round. His theoretical skill set would have been perfect.
We're going to have exit interviews at the end of this podcast with the teams that got bounced out of the finals.
Yeah, we'll do it.
So I guess we'll talk about Fultz. I need a breather from this. We're going to talk about the Western Conference Finals. We're going to preview that. But first, a word from our sponsors. Today's Ringer NBA show Heat Check is brought to you by State Farm. With over 19,000 State Farm agents nationwide, you can get an agent that gets you, as well as Devin Booker maybe gets Luka Doncic next year, which is the focus of the Ringer's latest NBA relationship goals video. We did this really fun video on theringer.com. You can find it on our website. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Chris Ryan and Jason Gallagher breaking down where Luka might end up, where DeAndre Ayton might end up, where Trae Young might end up. And it was a fascinating look inside the numbers and also what they do well and where they might fit well. The bummer of that video was, I guess they hate Trae Young because they have him going to Orlando. So I feel bad for Kevin Clark, but no matter who ends up in Orlando, that person's career is probably cooked. So good luck to that person. But anyway, go check that video out. You can see all of that and more on theringer.com, the Ringer's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/The Ringer. And of course, The Ringer's Facebook or Twitter. And remember, like teammates on the court, a relationship with a State Farm agent sets you up for success off the court. Go to statefarm.com to get an agent that gets you. Heat Check is also brought to you by ADT. Is your home an ADT home? If not, get ADT and help protect against break-ins, fire, carbon monoxide. For a limited time only, get ADT's lowest rate starting at just $28.99 a month from the most trusted name in home security. Guess what? That's just $1 a day. ADT is the first security company to help keep you safe at home and when you're on the go with the new ADT Go app. Not to mention, ADT Go also offers a family locator, private messaging, automatic check-ins, and safe driving reports. It even includes an SOS button with 24/7 emergency response, and you get ADT Go with the purchase of any security system. Go to ADT.com/podcast to take advantage of ADT's lowest rate. ADT, tested, trusted, proven. 36-month monitoring contract, early termination, and installation fees apply. It excludes taxes and fees, applies to traditional services only. Certain markets are excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. And now, back to Heat Check. All right, so not looking good for the Cavaliers. We'll see if they can rebound in the Eastern Conference. But Western Conference Final starts on Monday, gang. Tjarks, you have a piece up on theringer.com looking at Andre Iguodala and how he joined the Warriors, and that really started this area of Warriors-ness. But we've been barreling towards this all season long, right? I mean, like, the Warriors-Rockets is what we've been waiting for. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. It should be fun. I mean, first night of the season, it was like 120, 122.
Yeah.
Like Warriors. Then ever since then, it's been prelude to
Did
this.
we all make predictions here? Let's go around the
let's go
around the, like, what did you say? You
I
start.
said Warriors in 6.
Warriors in 6.
Houston in 7.
Yes,
Ooh,
KOC's rolling the dice. I like it.
Yeah, I'm with the Warriors. 6 or 7. I would like to see. I mean, this is going to be a fascinating series because styles make matchups, right? And it's like all year long, they have been the two best teams in the NBA, and they play radically different offensive styles in that the Warriors whip the ball around the perimeter. They're super pass heavy. They're at top of the league in assist rate, and the Houston Rockets are not because they score a lot off their first and second actions, and they play a lot of iso ball. And when Kevin and I were in Boston for the Sloan Analytics Conference, Morey talked about this very thing with Zach Lowe, and he was like, look, sometimes, especially in the playoffs, your offense doesn't matter. You just need a bucket in one moment. And that's kind of how they played all year. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes.
I wrote about that before the finals last year when I picked Cleveland to beat Golden State, which did not go well. But, the point of the article kind of stands in the sense that, even Golden State, they run more isolations the deeper you get into the playoffs. I don't have the numbers offhand exactly, but it was a pretty significant increase, especially in the fourth quarter of games. So for Houston, that's really what they do best, right? They are probably the best isolation team in basketball, except for maybe the team that has Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant.
Yeah, maybe we'll see the Steph Katie pick and roll for like a long part of the series, which would be nice to see that. Like they're going to be pushed finally, hopefully.
It's really interesting how these two teams kind of embody all the philosophical changes that have emerged over the league over the last 10 years. It's like a return to iso ball when you can do it in certain situations efficiently enough. It's actually good. This is what we've discovered. It's like if you can get free throws and rim looks out of it, it's a great offense.
Yeah, and I think too, so it seems like for the most part, small ball has won the day. Like the big for small thing is over. This might be the next ideological thing. It's like ISOs versus ball movement like the next couple of years.
And I love watching those differences stylistically, but also strategically, right? Like when are you going to bring out the pick and roll with those guys for the Warriors? And when are you going to just decide, hey, we need a bucket right now? And does that break down the overall schematics of your offense and what you're trying to do and the adjustments? In a way though, whoever gets through this, it feels like is the presumptive champion. With apologies to your Boston Celtics potentially if they get through, or LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, doesn't it feel like this is kind of the finals?
Yeah, it feels like that, but guys get hurt all the time.
Yeah,
you never
you're right.
know.
One injury away.
Yeah.
We get 2 finals.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
What are you most like? What matchups are you most looking forward to?
I mean, to me, it's KD. I feel like this is a series where if KD can beat KD, get 30 efficiently against these elite defenders, then what's going to happen? I feel like last year they really didn't have to do anything, Golden State. They just kind of won on pure talent.
Yeah.
It's like this year they're going to actually be pushed. Now here's KD's chance. I'm the best player in the world. Like that's the chance right now in the series. Take that step.
I think for me, it's Draymond, who's kind of scuffled through the regular season and then emerged in the previous round where he just looked like the dynamo that he's been in the past. I think that unlocks a lot of things for them. KD too. I mean, KD, I'm interested where he ends up on defense. That's the thing I'm interested with KD.
To me, it's Clint Capella. He won the Rudy Gobert matchup.
He won the Towns matchup too.
He won that as well. And this is different though. I mean, you're going against Draymond Green. If you can force Golden State to have to play like Zaza Pachulia, well, then you
just basically spit his name out. You can't KOC to I can't be bothered to say Zaza. Like your face scrunched up into an awful look.
Yeah, well, but on the other hand, though, if you're Golden State, if you can force Houston to pull Capella off, who has been so tremendous protecting the rim, and you force them to go small with Ba Mute or Tucker at the 5, well, that's good for Golden State. But the fact Houston can play those styles, it does bode well for them to have the ability to adapt.
Let's not forget the Nick Young, Gerald Green shootout we're all going to get.
Oh, please. Yes. I want that. I also want to see, how do we feel about James Harden right now? Because the second round wasn't phenomenal for him. There were some questions about how he's feeling.
I'm here for the memes for sure. If he has a bad game, definitely here for the memes.
Do we think that he's rested and ready to rock and that we're going to get the James Harden that we got all year? Or do we think that, the James Harden that we got in the second round might show up where he maybe wasn't as efficient?
What Jason was saying, you put KD on him, he can fight over screens and just cover him up. That'd be fascinating.
That's the thing that I'm really interested in. How do they use KD's length? KD's really taken it up a couple notches over the last season and a half, since he's been with the Warriors, just unlocking his defensive potential. And I think that's a huge X factor.
You know what it reminds me of? Is remember in 2011 when it was LeBron versus Rose and Rose won the MVP and LeBron was like, no, I'm bigger and faster than you. And he just took him out of the series. And it was like, oh my God, LeBron's a great defender. Well, Harden's won the MVP this year. Durant can be like, let me take that from you. Or
do you have Kevin Durant off ball, on Ariza, Tucker, Ba Mute, and having him roam, kind of helping off one of those guys, and essentially trying to take away the lane from Harden's drives,
or maybe
you have
put
him
him
as
on
a switch
maybe
defender.
Put him on Capella, and he comes out of that switch like, oh, here I am.
I mean, we shouldn't forget either. Conversely, Houston had a good year defensively, right? So I'm interested to see what they do to lock up KD. I mean, who do you put? How would you go about solving the Steph, Clay, Draymond, KD? They're playing 4 out and they're whipping the ball around. How do you go about solving that?
I guess to me, the line of Houston I'm watching is can they go Gordon, Paul, Harden? Can they keep one of those defenders off the floor? Because that's their best offensive lineup. Can those guys survive on defense? Because you'll probably need all 3 of those guys to be scoring big bucks. I'm expecting a high scoring series.
Yeah.
I think you need all 3 of those guys.
That would be great because I'm coming off a Sixers Celtics and that was a rock fight. So the high scoring would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I'm interested to see how Kerr tries to pick at James Harden. The Rockets were a really good defensive team this year. A lot of that is the new personnel, PJ Tucker, etc. I feel like they're going to go right at Harden with on switches, with straight up with Steph Curry, whoever's on him. I feel like they're going to go right at him and see what they can get.
Or if you have Harden on Steph or Curry, can he track him around screens, off the ball for 20 minutes?
And he's
him out.
He's had issues with being tired and exhaustion in the past. And can you do it? Can you wear him down?
Fatigue's certainly going to be a huge factor in the series. We saw it in the past with some of D'Antoni's Suns teams. Harden certainly, in the past before D'Antoni has looked fatigued the deeper he's gone into the playoffs. In this last round, he did as well. So having Chris Paul is certainly going to help, though, having a Hall of Fame point guard by your side who can help handle the load.
Yeah, all season long, I thought how they played together was fascinating because seeing it unfold with Chris Paul, I didn't expect that it would go this seamlessly. It's been great. It's been a revelation, and I think you're right. Having Chris Paul, who's a Hall of Famer, on that team in this series, it's kind of weird to say he could be an X factor, but he kind of is.
Yeah. He's really kicking ass.
And he really filled the perfect slot that they needed because, what was the way you shut down the Rockets in the playoffs in the past? It was like you tried to squeeze them into that long 2 range. And now you have one of the best mid-range shooters who's ever done it.
Yeah.
Who's still able to kill from that range, and Chris Paul, and problem basically solved.
I think if I was like the one thing with I was the Warriors, like you got Paul and Harden, but the Warriors got KD, Clay, and Steph. Like they can have an off night from one of their guys, whereas the Rockets guys can't have off nights. So can they get like 35 on ISOs against elite defense 6-7 games? I don't know.
Could you say the same thing about some of Golden State's guys though, like Iguodala, Draymond Green? Some of
I'm
those
talking like the stars. Like they have 3 stars versus 2 on offense.
Oh,
so
that's what I misheard. Yeah,
I think less so. It's like you look at Capella. If Harden's having a bad game, Capella's maybe going to have a bad
Probably.
game. So it's like it's a trickle down effect for that team more than the Warriors.
You mentioned Iguodala. You wrote about Iguodala. Like, take us through that piece and what he means for that team.
Oh yeah, I went back and looked at his quotes from like 2013 when he signed there, and basically he sold them on the team. He was like, he came to the meeting. He's like, no, I know what's going on. Y'all got Steph, you got Clay. I'm gonna come and do this, this, and this. They're like, we got to sell you. He's like, no, I want to do this. This is going to be the team. This is happening.
It's fascinating.
And he's kind of like masterminded this whole thing from the beginning. Like he was there with KD in the meeting. Like it feels like Iguodala was like, he was like the Jason Kidd of this team, where he's kind of like the off the court mastermind. He's the leader in the locker room. He guards positions.
Great defender.
Like he's the ball mover.
Yeah.
I have this one play in my article from Game 4 against New Orleans. He gets the ball on the top of the key. There's no one on him. He's wide open. And he's like, he goes, Clay, get over there. He literally points at Clay, move. And Steph comes to the spot. He hits Steph for a 3. He's like, literally like, guys, go there. You go here. I'll make it happen.
There's a clip on Reddit of Iguodala saying Clay, 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 like 50 times, trying to get Clay to go to the right spot on the floor.
It feels like NBA desktop material.
It's very much so.
Like having covered Iguodala in Philly and then watched what he was there, and then in Denver, and then seeing this version of Iguodala, like where they had to say, okay, well, you're going to be a bench guy and you're going to be doing all these things. And like hearing him sell them on it before it actually happened is really interesting because he wasn't any of those things previously. He was always a good passer, always a good defender, but he had to do so much more for Denver and Philly. And now for him to just be the intangibles guy and do whatever needs to be done and just be like a really smart guy on the floor who's never going to hurt you is probably what he was always best to do.
They wanted too much from him in Philly.
Oh, way too much. And also he got killed for the contract. Yeah. Like they gave him max money and like who wouldn't take that? Like that's his fault.
And the funny thing is, so this offseason, they're like, we don't really want to pay you. We have luxury tax. And he goes, well, let's go to Houston and have a meeting with the Rockets.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, 3 for 50. And he's like, oh, okay, this'll work. Like he's got the whole thing figured out, man.
It's going to be a fascinating series. I'm super excited about it. We should also do some exit interviews because those guys are still going. There are teams that are not still going. You want to start with the Sixers because you mentioned it earlier?
I want to hear your reaction.
Yeah,
how are you feeling
how are you feeling?
Yeah.
How am I feeling?
What should they do? How do you feel about their window, which I think is smaller than people realize?
I think that series was an interesting series. Kevin is literally laughing. The best part is like we're on a podcast. He's like silent laughing out of the corner of my eye. That series could have gone the other way. There were a number of games, games 2 and games 3, where
mistakes, rookie
100%,
stuff,
and there were coaching mistakes. And also, again, credit to the Celtics. They played it like a rock fight. They played it like a bully ball where the Sixers were playing extremely fast in the first series. And the Celtics were like, nope, you're not going to do that. We're going to dial the pace way down and you're going to have to beat us that way. And they couldn't, right? And the Celtics took advantage of that. Credit to them.
So panic meter, 1 to 10.
Like 15. What you said about Fultz is right? Like what they needed was what Fultz ostensibly could have delivered.
Somebody to create a shot.
I don't know what's going to happen there. And this is something I talked with Bill about on last week's pod. Bill was giving heat in a shocking development. Bill was giving heat to Brett Brown because, he's got Brad Stevens and Brad Stevens can do no wrong. For me, I'm much, much, much more concerned about Brian Colangelo. Like Brian Colangelo's got to fix this thing now, right? Yeah. He's got to go, okay, well, we still need shooters, but it's probably not going to be Ersan. It's probably not going to be Marco Bellinelli.
You got to have shooters who can play defense.
It shouldn't be.
Right. I mean, like that was an anomaly.
It shouldn't be.
What are you going to do with JJ?
Yeah.
Who I hope he gets his money. Yeah. I hope everybody at the Ringer gets their money.
Yeah.
But you got to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you do with Fultz?
Now, I think you could make a case, right? You can imagine a world where Fultz becomes like a starting quality guard contributor on a team. I think if you try to imagine a world where Markelle Fultz is like an all-star caliber guard, I have a hard time imagining.
Well, do you think maybe if he goes somewhere else where like there's less pressure? I guess there's a lot of pressure right now. You're in a good team in the market.
Philly needs to really ascertain whether they think he can do it there. And I think the thing that scares me, not even a little, like a lot about him, is the fact that he's not even attempting the shots. You got to put him up.
He's pulling a Simmons.
You got to put him up at least.
And Simmons too. I mean, your guy
shoots with the wrong hand.
Kevin O'Connor, do you have an opinion on which hand Ben Simmons should shoot with?
The right hand.
Yeah. So the Sixers need to make a determination what they think Fultz can give them. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't rise to whatever level they have internally that they think they can build a roster around it easily with, they obviously need to add shooters and someone who can create a shot. Then I think they need to try and move him and bamboozle another team into seeing the potential there and picking him up before.
But here's the thing: like, if you're another team, how much value?
Yeah, you're not going to give them value.
So
I know. That's the thing.
The trade, idea I put in an article last month, and we talked about one of the live shows. Like, I don't know, we do so much stuff. I forget which one.
You do a lot of shows.
You have no content, right?
But
there is.
But the deal was something along the lines of like Fultz, Covington, Saric, 2 drafts and stashes, including Jonah Bolden, Jared Bayless, a salary filler, and the 2018 Lakers pick for Kawhi. And like, you could say that's
a shit. It makes a ton of stuff.
I mean, like, how do you feel about the Kawhi rumor though? Like, because the Sixers doctor, what do you think about that?
Well, so the Sixers doctor situation in Philadelphia has always been a point of consternation. Look at what happens, right? Like, Nerlens comes in, Nerlens takes a year off. Embiid comes in, Embiid takes 2 years off. Simmons comes in, Simmons takes his first year off. Fultz with his shoulder is either a mental or physical redshirt, but either way, like, functionally, he didn't really play. So this is like a point of concern in Philadelphia. So with Kawhi saying
the thing was like, it was his dog, the Sixers guy, right, was doing his rehab or something.
Yeah, and my point is that if you're the Spurs, you might not want to take that deal because you were talking about the concern Philly might have with Fultz. Well, why wouldn't the 29 other teams also share that concern? They know how inconsistent Covington is. They know that there's no certainty with anything that they'd be getting back in a deal like that.
Well, Kawhi can be like, I want to go to Philly. That would be the idea.
Sure.
Like he pushes it.
I mean, that would be great.
But
I would take Kawhi.
But right now, like Woj said, he's not available now at this moment.
I would take Kawhi. I would take LeBron. I mean, they obviously need more because, as we just said, the Celtics are set up for quite a long time. And it drives me fucking insane that when we're sitting there watching the Celtics, who are good without ostensibly their 2 best players, to watch Jaylen Brown, like in Philly, my friends from Philly, it makes them angry how much I like Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
But he's objectively fucking good. And the Sixers have a guy who is objectively a question mark.
That's not a very objectively. That's a very nice way to say it.
Thank you. I appreciate
what made it even worse in that series was the fact that Jason Tatum was absolutely going ham. Here's the guy that you traded for.
Yeah.
You passed
what did I say? Did I say Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, you said
Jaylen. I meant Jason Tatum.
That's what makes it really difficult. And like, so what do you do? What do you do? What would you do about the Fultz situation? Let's say they make the determination that he's going to be a league average starting guard or something.
I mean, then you have to move it if that's the calculus. But then again, what are you getting him back? What are you getting back? And for me, it's already a sunk cost. But that, like, the Jason Tatum thing just drives me absolutely batty.
Hurts your soul.
It drives me insane because he's good right now and he's going to be good for a long time, and you don't know what's going to happen.
So are they out of picks, the Sixers? Do they have any more future picks coming?
They have a Lakers pick this year.
That's it.
It's currently the 10th best.
The Celtics have like 3 or 4 more of these bad boys.
The Celtics
coming.
in 2019 have a top 1 protected Kings pick that if it's the number 1 pick, they didn't get the Sixers pick, and they also have a top 8 protected Grizzlies pick that becomes unprotected in 2021.
I think, Gon, what you got to hope is like some of these young guys like get some ego things going. You got to start spewing that negativity in the air. That's your bet.
Well, Philadelphia, a good chance of that happening for negativity in the air. Let's talk about some of these other teams that got bounced out because I can't do any more. Is it really
negative though? What is it really negative? Like, this is so far ahead of schedule.
Yeah, but the thing is, you look at
it's way far ahead of schedule.
Fultz ? JJ Redick, free agent.
He'll be back, I think.
Okay. Fine.
How many years and for how much?
Exactly.
I want to know first, but go ahead.
McConnell, unrestricted free agent 2019.
Basically an NBA All-Star.
Yes.
Continue.
Simmons, restricted free agent 2020. I'm saying, like, if looking at to assemble your team, Fultz was going to be a core. I mean, the core
a crucial
piece.
part.
And this affects your window because if he's not that guy, you need to go and find that guy somewhere.
And despite what I just said about like they're far ahead of schedule, like this could be Embiid's healthiest season.
That's what I mean.
Ben Simmons may never.
I don't like how this podcast has been hijacked.
I will say Phillies I would take their future over the Mavs. So like, it's okay.
Or the Knicks for
example. For sure.
What about all right? So for other like take your what about their window conversation and apply it to the Toronto Raptors. What do they do? Because the Raptors now, they had Dwayne Casey, who could end up being the coach of the year, and he just got fired, which Paolo Uggetti willed into existence. He spoke it into existence just like LeVar Ball would have spoken it into existence. He wanted this to happen. It might actually happen. Oh. I feel bad for Dwayne Casey.
We all do.
But it was time, I think, frankly, like for something to change there. I was surprised they brought him back before.
I was surprised as well. That said, the best season in Raptors history.
What does that mean?
You have to blow it up. This is their ceiling. I mean, like,
blow it.
There's a volcano on the television. I think you got to blow it up. I mean, when they made that run from 25 down with DeRozan on the bench, that's a warning flag. It's time to go.
I will say, like, the one thing about it, like blowing it up, like they already have the young players. It's not like they're like, oh, they're going to be bad for a while. They got young players who are going to get better. Like, I think. To me, like, I would go smaller. I would start OG, start Pascal, get a new coach, probably empower.
I love small ball so much.
Well, I'd probably empower probably move Lowry, empower Wright and Van Vliet. And like, yeah, their future may not be great, but they got a good young team.
But what are you getting for a 32-year-old point guard making over $30 million? Like, so that, like, my thing is like 1 year ago, I wrote the blow it up article and it seems stupid. Like, I felt like that was a better time to do it after re-signing everybody doing it during the season. But their season was so great that it was worth sticking with it and continuing moving forward and trying to build and maximize the next 2 years. I just don't know what you're going to get for a 32-year-old point guard who's probably not built for a long, sustainable career, making over $30 million the next 2 seasons in a league where every team basically has a point guard. I just don't know what
but like
is.
The thing to me is like it doesn't even matter because you have 3 or 4 young guys who are going to be long-term stars in the league, so you don't need big foundational pieces.
Who's going to trade for him though? That's there might not be a single team in the league that would trade for Kyle Lowry. There really might not be a single one.
Phoenix, maybe?
I don't think so.
Because McDonough's job's on the line.
Phoenix can aim for bigger fish than Kyle Lowry, I think.
There's so many. I mean, part of the problem is the age. Part of the problem is the money. Part of the problem, I think the bigger problem is that point guard is so deep, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to upgrade a point guard.
The tough thing, too, is she's not multi-positionally so small, so you really can't play without a point guard. Let me look this up.
This makes me feel better about the Sixers as I think about the Raptors because the Raptors, like, it sucks. They had their moment, and I think that moment is over. Whatever that moment was.
Here's the thing, though. They'll come back and win 52 games next year.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Really?
Exactly. I'm just saying, like, as a Knicks fan, I'll take I'll take a bunch of 50-win seasons that don't go anywhere, like in a row. Yeah, I'll take it.
Like the Mavs only 50 games for like 6 more years, probably.
I wrestle with this sometimes because there are markets, right, where you go, 45 to 50 something wins and a couple of playoff series, and you're going to pack the building and people are going to feel good, but you're never going to be a real championship contender. That's good enough. That's okay. For me, I'd probably get bored of that eventually. Like if you were a Raptors fan, wouldn't you look at like what's happening? Even with, and Verrier just wrote a really smart piece about like everything in the East goes through LeBron regardless. But take LeBron out of the conference, right? And toss him into the Western Conference just for a second. We just spent a large portion of this program saying the Celtics and the Sixers, mostly the Celtics, fine. But the Celtics and the Sixers are positioned to dominate the Eastern Conference for the next however many years. Even without LeBron, they're fucked. The Raptors. With LeBron, they're extra fucked.
Well, I would say like philosophically. So like I was in Dallas. The Mavs won 50 games for like 10 years in a row if I won a championship. It wasn't boring, man. It was great. Like they went to the playoffs. We had some fun series.
They did squeak out the one.
But I'm saying like that happened way at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like I still had a great time beforehand. Yeah. Like what do you got? Life is too short. We got to win a championship every year. There's 30 teams in the league.
That's my thing with Toronto. It's like, last year I wrote the blow it up thing. And this year it's like, I don't know if there's a way to blow it up. If there is, great, then do it. If you can trade Kyle Lowry for something that makes sense, something you can trade DeRozan for, then do it. Pull the plug, just do it. But
how about
if you can't do it, then what you need to do is build towards the future while trying to maximize these next 2 years. And you know what? If DeRozan, Valanciunas, Kyle Lowry, all those guys hit free agency and
let them
go. If they walk or you trade them at the deadline that year, then so be it. But do what you can to maximize
what I'm saying.
Years
so like right now,
forward.
OG is 20, Pascal's 24, Van Vliet's 24, DeLon Wright's 26, Pearl is 22. Like, you've got a good young team. Like, no reason to panic. Like, in worst case scenario, Lowry and DeRozan are gone. We have good young guys to build going forward.
I think probably the most damaging thing is just like the emotional toll that this series took on them, because this was really the year. They made all the changes. They made all the changes. They adjusted the offense. They got DeRozan and Lowry to spread the offense around. They got good minutes out of Valanciunas. The young guys came up. All of a sudden, there's a bench. They have perimeter defenders with Van Vliet. Long guys. Yeah. They could throw different looks at you. And they got
it still doesn't matter.
They got wrecked.
They did literally everything that needed to happen for this year to go as well as it did. It went perfect for them up until the playoffs against LeBron James.
So I went and looked at Basketball Reference. So before the 2016 conference finals year, Raptors have around 20 years. They'd won one playoff series in 20 years. So, like, this was a great run. Like, it's a weird mindset we have. Like, one series in 20 years.
And they won their first game one in, like,
damning with faint praise.
5 years or whatever it is.
It is a great run, but it's also about, you mentioned all the youth in their team. Like, let's say they didn't have all that impressive youth. Well, then it's time to think about, we need to build for sustaining winning into the 2020s.
Yeah.
But, they do have a solid future outlook. I'm not sure.
Hey, KC,
and any of those guys are really that impressive to me, aside from OG Anunoby. Like, DeLon Wright, he's like 26 years old right now. He's not that young.
KC, were you when you were saying buttonholes, was that just you speculating, or you think that's going to happen for sure?
That's what I heard.
Okay.
That's actually, I think, that's a perfect team for him. Actually.
It'd be a good spot for him. It'd be a good coach for them.
But then he's also lost to LeBron in 2 sweeps the last.
That's different teams though.
Still, but it's the optics of it are
one
great.
thing I'm curious about though is like with Coach Bud, he's a guy that's never seemed like super composed on the sidelines. I'm not sure maybe that's the right fit for Toronto, but who knows?
Maybe
they need that.
He's a really good coach.
Maybe they need that. Maybe they need somebody to like lose. I want everybody to.
Maybe you need that.
I want everybody to start panicking. I want to talk about the other two teams that got bounced out of the semifinals as well, and what we think about them as they move forward with the Pelicans and the Jazz. Between those two, what do you think about their future prospects? They were both successful seasons, surprising seasons, but clearly both teams need more. The Jazz definitely need more offense. And the Pelicans, I mean, maybe it's just a Boogie solve, but Boogie's also coming off an Achilles, and he's a large dude to begin with. And in a way, they were playing better without him.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about those two teams?
Well, to me, I did an article about the Pelicans after they lost. I was saying, if it's possible, there's a lot of salary cap. To me, you got to go Boogie for someone like Otto Porter. You got to get another perimeter defender in there who can play with Golden State. I think Davis at the 5 is the way to go. I mean, especially even without the injuries. Like, I just watched Wesley Matthews for 3 years after the Achilles, man.
It's tough.
And Wesley works way harder than
Name
Boogie.
one guy. Name one guy who came back at anything approximating the similar level.
A lot less weight too, right? I mean, like he's a smaller dude. Like Boogie's a big guy to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, like keeping the pounds off not easy, and doing it with it coming off an Achilles. That's gonna be a struggle. And you're right. Like I just wonder, like athletically, what's he gonna look like?
Yeah,
I'm reading straight from an article we did during the series.
This is great.
Players who have ruptured their Achilles return to the court with varied results. Elton Brand and Wesley Matthews were never the same. Dominique Wilkins played 7 more high-level seasons. There's like a mixed bag, with guys who return. It seems like if you're an elite athlete like Dominique Wilkins, maybe you can do it. But some of those guys that aren't, it's tough. Like you said, Tjarks, Boogie carries a lot of weight. So if you're New Orleans, maybe you do try to go for that 2-3 year deal, but if you're Boogie's camp, you're like, no. We need that money.
And
but who's giving it?
Even in those best case scenarios, the Dominique Wilkins, for instance, it takes over a season to come back.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll play when he gets healthy and is clear to play, but the rust will be thick and very red. Like it's going to take a while for him till you're able to say, okay, this is his consistent level of play. And we just don't know what that's going to look like. The history is not good.
I don't know what the Pelicans do, though. I think they. I don't know. I don't know how they don't re-sign him. Right. I mean, like if who knows? Maybe Boogie wants to go somewhere else. But my guess is like you stay put because if you're the Pelicans, what else are you going to do?
There's nothing.
It's kind of it's the reason that Drew Holiday was offered an extension. It's the reason Rajon Rondo is on this point guard is the point guard on this team is because they had to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a path dependency. Once they started on this path, it kind of closed their options.
Then with like Etuan Moore playing out of position on that team, there's not a lot of options for New Orleans. And that's why it's like, if you're them, I would hope, if I'm New Orleans, I would hope that there's a team willing to sign and trade for Boogie. But if you're the Washington Wizards, Why would you give up Otto Porter, a really good 3-and-D wing/forward for a guy coming off a torn Achilles? Is it just to make John Wall happy? No, you're not going to do that. I don't know how many teams out there would want Boogie, which is why I think ultimately he just ends up back there, maybe on a 2-3 year deal, unless you're Dallas Mavericks Tjarks are willing to take a risk.
Oh man,
that'd be fantastic. I would love to see that.
Strong
that will go well with Rick and Boogie. That will go really, really well.
Real strong connection with Boogie's agent.
Rick, I'm running point center, and that's what's going to happen.
Nothing to worry about there. What about with the Jazz? How do we feel about the Jazz and their prospects? I like that Jazz team. They're fun to watch. I think that they had a better season than a lot of people anticipated, but clearly they need more offense. It's Donovan Mitchell's team already.
Yeah. Well, I think KOC's going to laugh a bit. To me, you have to move off Favors at the 4. It's probably time to get a little smaller around.
You love the small ball.
I think like 2 bigs in this league, it's only so far it's going to go, especially the Rockets, the Warriors in your
Favors
conference.
is probably gone anyway, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Mitchell and Gobert, that's a
good start.
That's a really good core. Like when you hit on a player like Mitchell down at 13, 14, 15,
it's crazy.
It can really alter the trajectory of your franchise. And I think it has clearly. So, I mean, the question is, it really ameliorates some of the questions around the Dante Exum situation.
Here's my question, like, do you think Mitchell is good enough for guys to be like, I'll go play in Salt Lake City. I'll sign a contract there.
No.
Can he get guys? He's not that good.
No.
Is anyone that good?
No, you're not going to Salt Lake.
He's a star. He's a star player, but is he a superstar player of that caliber?
I mean, it's a pretty town. I don't know.
You know, in a way, like we joke and we say no, but maybe like in a cap environment where there's not a lot of teams with max space and Utah's the only team coming at you with the ability to offer the full max, then maybe Mitchell is good enough. Maybe Quinn Snyder's good enough. And
they got a clean sheet coming up. They'll have room to make some
to toss some money at people.
Only $75 million guaranteed for this summer, then only $45 million for the following summer. Granted, that's obviously going to change with guys who might resign.
Dennis Lindsey's done a fantastic job with that.
I mean, let's not forget the great Joe Ingles.
Jingles is still there.
He's locked up for a long time.
Janglin Joe has a legitimately impressive playoff reel. So it's legitimately good.
I talked about this.
He's roasted teams.
I talked about this with Shea on last week's podcast. Jingles was one of Shea's guys who in the playoffs has helped his reputation the most. Like during last season and then this regular season, I probably would have been like Joe Ingles agnostic. This playoffs was fantastic. He was excellent. He was excellent.
Now, I went back and watched that Take Hunter thing y'all did. And I was talking about Joe Ingles. Like, this guy's a genius.
But does Joe Ingles look like an NBA player, though?
Is this a bit you're doing with Vernon or something? Right?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I mean, he's 6'8".
Of course he looks like an NBA player.
He's tall.
Spreads the floor.
Like
why Verno doesn't think he does?
Of course he looks like an NBA player.
I mean, if he was 6'2", he would. Yeah, he's freaking huge.
Well, no, but what does an NBA player look like?
What does an NBA player look like? That's for tomorrow's podcast with Chris Vernon and Kevin O'Connor. I want to thank everybody for listening. Jonathan Tjarks literally flew in from Dallas for this.
Flying back right after the show.
Yeah. Jason ride to the airport.
Jason Concepcion brought Milton in. Kevin O'Connor brought his fresh new haircut. Isaac Lee is always here holding it down. We want to encourage everybody to check out all of our NBA content on theringer.com. We're going to have a ton of stuff for you guys. And of course, per usual, NBA show has a ton of stuff to talk about all week long. We've got a live lottery show on Tuesday night, group chat, Wednesday night for Thursday, draft class, 2/3 of the draft class sitting right here in the podcast studio right now. And we've also got Bill Simmons. He's going to talk a lot of NBA basketball. We've got NBA Desktop 2 times a week.
Yay.
You got to make sure you check that out.
Best show on TV.
Next week, Isaac and I will be back. Isaac will be in LA. I will be in Cleveland because there's going to be basketball there in theory, and I'm going to go and check it out. So we'll have a heat check from Cleveland next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next week. Bye.